Hello everyone, Pro Drum Tech Kenny Sharretts here with the first installment of my tom tuning concept series that discusses tuning intervals between the batter head and the resonant head. Now in this first video we're going to show you how to change the head to start with, because I've done a lot of videos before. Some of them come out good, some not so good. So I'm going to take advantage of my time here in the beautiful White Room Studios of Austin, Texas, and get some really good work out of this for you. Now before we tune up this drum, I want to discuss a few concepts. One, what interval would we be working with? Now, all the intervals I'm talking about and we'll be talking about in this series come from the major scale. We're going to be with this time starting with an F, which is right here, and a B flat, which is a perfect fourth above the F. And so it's actually up the scale, the fourth step of a scale, and it's called a perfect fourth. And so I just wanted to make sure you understood that theoretically before we got going. Now in this drum, I've already taken off the top head per se, but as always, I point out to you, when you want to tune this bottom head, you want to protect your rim. So put this old head underneath, protects it. And I'm going to balance up this bottom head one more time. Check it to the B flat, pop in my UE7s, my trusty little buddies here that I use for monitoring. We just do a little tweak here. And this bottom head is reset and ready to put a brand new top head on. So let's get to it. All right, now I've got pretty much all of this drum head tuned in, and I just want to let you know, as always, I use a drill to make it nice and quick. And I always like to point out that if you're going to use this Evans drill bit key and use it on your drum, to make sure that you guide it with your finger and do it kind of nice and quick, but not too quick, because you want to get it close to finger tight. But you don't want to tune with a drill. You want to tune with your hands and some drum keys. Now, if you've seen any of my earlier tuning videos, you understand that I use a method that my friends have dubbed stereo tuning. And so I kind of call it stereo tuning because it works for me. And which is basically just taking your standard traditional radial tuning pattern, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that you would go across in a star-like pattern to tune this drum evenly and balance the head. But I use two hands at once. And that way the head comes down in a very balanced fashion, and it tends to be a little bit easier to tune more quickly, because a lot of times on the road I simply don't have time. Now also, by finger tight, I wanted to point out to y'all that I mean pretty darn tight. I want this drum at a tunable level when I start out. I want to be able to hear those little bit of tones, even if there's some flap in this 2-ply head, which is this is an Evans G2 coated 2-ply head. You still can get a little bit of tone out of the drum head, so you want to listen to that fundamental pitch. I can realize that this one is a little bit lower, and when you have a situation like this where it's like super finger tight, but you know it's a little bit lower, don't be afraid to put a little pressure on that hoop. Just a little, not like crushing it, just a little pressure. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and grab two keys, start the pattern, and we're going to tighten this thing up. One round of half turns. Now by half turn, I do mean a half turn. Now I'm going to do this on this other side. We'll call this 1 and 2. And then I'm going to sync them like two birds of a feather flocking together to do 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now before I go my next level of tuning, and I do this every time I'm tuning a drum head up or down, finding a pitch, I double check my tones to make sure she's balanced and ready to go. And we're ready to go around another set of half turns. Now I'm going to take this drum all the way up to tabletop tight, so we're just going to kind of high speed through this and get to tabletop tight, following the radial pattern and using stereo tuning. All right, now that we're at tabletop tight, I'm going to double check my tones and let this head stretch for at least a good 10 minutes to make sure that it doesn't stretch when you tune it and play it. Especially if you're in the studio, you don't want to be retuning it all the time. You want to let this get a good stretch. However, before I let it stretch, I'm going to give it a little help with a nice palm stretch. Now, if you've seen some other videos, you understand that I don't like putting too much pressure on the head. I want to put it around the bearing edge and kind of get an impression of that bearing edge in this plane. That way, that's what's really resonating on the drum. So simply take the butt of your hand, put it right in this spot here, and begin to go around the drum in a circular fashion, pulling between your fingers and the palm of your hand, and just kind of give it a good push down. Now, as I said before, this took 3 rounds of half turns to get to tabletop tight after the initial set of half turns. Generally, that tends to be about where you need to be with just about any head. Sometimes it may be 2 rounds beyond the first round, sometimes it may be 4. Either which way, you want it significantly tight so it really stretches the film of the drum head. Now, after we let this sit for a little bit, I'm going to take it back down and tune it to a perfect 4th.